For today's double indie game review, we turn to two games that may be small on gameplay loops, but make up for with a lot of style and interesting design, with Small Saga and Picayune Dreams. Small Saga takes place in a world that is kind of like The Secret of Nim meets Game of Thrones. Deep underneath the streets of London, all the mice, rats, and critters have formed a kind of medieval-ish society where humanity is treated as gods. When Verm's brother is one day killed by the Yellow God, aka Exterminator, and he loses his tail, he begins a blood vendetta to try and kill a human, and quite possibly to stabilize the entire rodent kingdom as we know it. The game itself has a really great style. I've said this before, I love games that do interesting things with scale and perspective, and the kind of battle art and battle animations are just phenomenal. As per the gameplay itself, this is definitely more along the lines of a classical JRPG. Now, there are a few differences here and there. Your party will consist of up to 4 characters, and you'll swap between them or different groups as the story persists. In combat, you'll make use of action points for each character that will dictate what moves they can use. There is also a passive tree for each character that you can go up as you see fit. Now, here's the interesting thing about Small Saga. There are no random encounters, and battles do not grant you experience. Instead, you will level up by completing major quests or achieving specific actions, fighting bosses, and so on. And the game definitely has variety there. There's numerous side quests, and the world itself is very fleshed out. At one point, you will also have to do battle with evil, fascist, vape-smoking Squirrel Josh. There's a line I never thought I would have to say here. Now, with everything said, Small Saga's, I think, main issue that people will have is that, well, it is on the smaller side. This is not going to be a 30 to 60 hour long RPG, nor will the mechanics, I think, really have enough meat to go all the way. Once you kind of figure out how the game's systems work, you can break it very easily, and I did just that during our play. But this is certainly an RPG you're going to play for the story and the world building, probably more than just the general combat, which certainly works. If you're a fan of RPGs and looking for one that definitely has its own unique style and flair to it, I highly recommend Small Saga. We go from something small to a whole mess of bullets and things, with Picayune Dreams. So in this one, as I talked about in my Best of Bullet Heaven Fest showcase, this is a Bullet Heaven Hell, or Bullet Hell Heaven. Our story. When a strange anomaly is heading towards Earth, a crew of kids are sent to try and deal with it, and something goes terribly wrong. With the majority of them losing their minds, it's up to us as the remaining character to brave space, deal with the oddities, and maybe save humanity in the process. Our gameplay here, at first, is in line with your classic, or what we now know as a kind of like classic Bullet Heaven. You'll fly around, you'll kill enemies to gain experience, and then you'll make a choice from 1 to 3 different upgrades. Now, the weapon variety in this one is really well done. You have a mix of weapons, some that have to be manually aimed, some that are automatic, boosters, stat adjusters, and more. As you fly around, you'll have to survive until the mortality rate hits 5 increments. At that point, the game turns into a bullet hell, as you must deal with the bosses, complete with their own crazy patterns, bullets going all over the place, and you will have to dodge and use your very tiny hitbox as your only judge of whether you will survive. Now, the main thing about Picayune Dreams is that this is not an easy game. Let me say that again. This is not the game if you're looking for an easy to play or a bullet heaven you're going to zone out to. There is a lot going on here, and that is also extended to the game's persistence, which is probably one of my favorite uses of the system out of any bullet heaven, probably even up there with Vampire Survivors. As you kind of level up your kind of like software account or your meta account, you will be able to choose from different upgrades, as we all know. The upgrades here will add in new systems, change the rules of how certain things will work, and are there to not so much just flat out give you more power, but give you more options and change the game's diversity. As an example, an upgrade that you can get is that you can make it a rule that if an enemy is affected by a status ailment, they'll take increased damage. But there's also passives that will give you a 1% chance of inflicting a status ailment per hit. But remember, this is a game where you are firing dozens of bullets a minute, so these procs will happen quite often. There's also ways of changing how your different weapons work, how some of the bosses and rules of the world behaves, and there is a lot to this one. I have not had a completed run yet, it is that hard of a game, but people have said that there's even more content and more challenges once you finish it that change things even further. And this is a very solid game. This may be my favorite of the bullet heaven styles released in 2023. If there are any issues with this one, it can be a little bit on the slow burn side. You see, you're not going to be getting dozens and dozens of unlocks every match, every run, and you are going to have to really pay attention to what you're doing, what weapons and items and so on that you're going to get. And the game could use a little less obscuring of what certain things will affect. Instead of giving you just an easy to understand, this raises damage, this improves attack speed, you get basically pseudocode that you'll need to read through and try and parse in order to figure things out. So if you are someone who likes your games on the challenging side, and you're not so much looking for a bullet heaven to relax to, but one to raise a little hell and maybe get into a little Tuhu territory along the way, then you should definitely check this one out. And with that said, we're going to end things here. Both of these games were played with press keys. I would like to thank the developers of each game for providing them. And if you'd like me to play your game for a future stream, video, and all that, please get in touch. That's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to do the YouTubing stuff people tell you to do. If you're interested in more of my thoughts on design, check out my books wherever they are sold. Visit our Discord and Patreon, and come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where you some of the art and science of games.